to another video from Pokemon Professor Review. We have Piplup joining us with a little bit of a snack because we might be getting hungry at this point as we begin to look at factoring. Now, factoring is going to be an important part of mathematics and algebra and in higher level mathematics. You're going to learn many different strategies for how to handle factoring, but all of them rely on some basic understandings about factoring. So let's take an example like 30 plus 6. We can add these two numbers together to make 36 pretty quickly. However, if you're asked to say factor this expression, then what they're asking you to do is look for a greatest common factor. Now, there are many videos out there about greatest common factor. I'm not going to go into that. Please take a look and find one of those if you're not skilled at finding greatest common factors. But in this case, the greatest common factor of these two numbers is going to be 6. So in order to factor, what I want to do is I want to use the distributive property in reverse. So remember, we did the distributive property back when we were simplifying algebraic expressions. And so what we're going to do is we are now going to do this in reverse. We are going to rewrite the two terms of our expression so that they are the greatest common factor times whatever's left. So since our greatest common factor is 6, I'm going to rewrite 30 as 6 times 5. And I'm going to rewrite 6 as 6 times 1. Now, I have now set this up just like the right side of the absolute value equation. So now that I've done this, I'm now going to take it back to the left side of the distributive property equation. So I'm going to take that 6 out, and it's going to now be in front of the parentheses. And what goes into the parentheses is what remains after removing the greatest common factor. So that would be 5 plus 1. And this is one way for us to factor. Now there's a second form of factor that I want to make sure you also see as well, because this one doesn't use the greatest common factor. It uses a different idea, a different concept to handle it. So 2a plus 7. And now I want to factor out what's known as the leading coefficient. Now, when we talked about the structure of equations, this also applies to expressions. We know, since this is the only variable a, that 2 has to be the leading coefficient. So in order for us to factor this out, we have to rewrite, just like we did up here, we have to rewrite this algebraic expression in the same way. Since 2 is what we're going to factor out, we're going to rewrite 2a as 2 times a. Now here's where things get interesting. 7 cannot be written as 2 times another whole number like we did up here with 30 and 6. Or another integer. It can only be written if you consider fractions. So 2 times 7 halves. 2 7/2 make a full 7. So 2 times 7/2 would be the same thing as 7. So when I factor out this leading coefficient of 2, I end up with a plus 7/2 inside the parentheses. Now the last example I want to show you is what if there's a negative. So in this case, this is negative x, and I want to take that negative, I want to factor that negative out. So I need to rewrite each of these terms as -1 times whatever multiplied would make these two terms up above. So -1 times x makes -x. -1 times -7 makes a +7. So now, if I factor out that -1, I pull that negative out in front of the parentheses, I get x, that's the factor that moves down, and now -7 comes down to make negative times x minus 7. So these are the basic skills related to factoring. There are going to be more skills taught to you in Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. But as long as you understand these basics, that should help you be able to handle any of the future factoring that comes up. Thank you for watching this Pokemon Professor review. Make sure you watch the next video.